by asking you both to give me a sense of what the next decade is going to look like, what you expect in 10 years, but I want, in like just a word or two, the most obvious and like pedestrian and simple thing, and then the most outrageous and wild and ridiculous thing. Mike, why don't you start?
Well, I suppose obvious, I'm not sure what you would consider obvious. I think what I'm looking forward to, or not really looking forward to, but expecting over the next 10 years is the automation of management, because we now have the ability to do that.
Okay, this is the lightning round to get us started.
Automation of management.
Okay.
And, the least expected thing, probably the automation of management against the will of some of the people who work in the institutions in some cases.
Yeah, we're going to spend like the next 6 hours or 60 years talking about that. Fine. Emad?
I think we'll have 1 trillion agents and 1 billion robots, and I think the entire economic system is going to get flipped on its head.
Okay. Is that the obvious and simplistic one, or is that the outrageous one?
It's obvious and then outrageous.
Okay, really good. Illia?
There are going to be no more apps. That's the obvious one. It's going to be just all AI. And I think the outrageous is, there are going to be no more companies run by people.
No more companies run by people. Okay. Let me get a show of hands. Who here believes that there's going to be no more companies run by people? That's like 2. Okay. Who here thinks that there's going to be no more managers? That's like 3. And the hand was halfway turning. Okay. Who here thinks there's going to be how many? A gazillion number of agents? That's kind of obvious. And what was the second one you said? Future of money? No more money?
No, I said the economic system gets flipped over.
What does that mean?
It means that I think you see a break between labor and capital and massive amounts of dislocation everywhere.
Okay, to get there, there's going to be a changing in the economy. It means that there's going to be new forms of companies that will have been created. They're probably, your hope is that they're based on Web3, blockchain, crypto, AI. Let's dwell on this for a second. What does the future of business look like? Where are there interesting opportunities today that we're going to see blossom in the next 10 years? Mike?
For example, I think I would like to see automation of expenses and being able to pay for things. I think there's a lot of wasted time and missed opportunities, especially in the software industry, because people who work at the companies cannot easily purchase things with the company's money because they would have to get approval very high up, and they don't want to do that, so they just struggle on without a tool or something that would help them. And if you could go talk to an AI and convince that, I would like some budget for this, then this is much less intimidating for people. And this is the sort of automation of management that I'm talking about. You don't eliminate managers, but you take away some of their responsibilities because they don't want to do this, and the employees are happier dealing with the agent anyway.
Okay. Illia, tell me about what companies look like.
So I think I've postulated this. We're going to have AI CEO in a few years. So we're actually working toward that. And because to expand on Mike's point, people are just generally not good managers. Management is all about kind of context. It's all about trying to summarize information across a variety of things, either up or down. It's about providing directly feedback on what people do or not do, development, etc. Right? And as a person, your management skills don't scale, right? Even if you're a really great manager, you cannot manage that many people. AI actually can manage, infinite amount of people, right? It can effectively in parallel run, do this, have perfect information about what's happening in an organization, and summarize, provide this context to everyone. So I would say this would collapse the whole middle management layer and kind of just have AI CEO that can run this. You still want a board, so you still want some form of kind of DAO-like oversight over this, but the operational management can go to AI. I think the first examples where we're going to see this is actually more traditional businesses, gas station, right? There's not much, there's a bunch of financial stuff, there's a bunch of legal stuff, and there's managing people who are in the store until they're replaced by robots. And so all of that is completely doable by AI, I think, actually at this point. And then we kind of going to see some of this expanding from there.
Why do we want to get rid of managers?
I mean, people are just not good at this. This is not something that we're like, this is not a creative job. It's not a kind of like managing is, from my perspective, is like necessary evil to scale organizations, right? Like you never see a startup where, people want to be managed. Like startups is the most fun time people have because they work together and there's no need for management, right? Everybody has perfect information on what's happening. They working together, they like creating something. And then as the organization scales, you have this information propagation problems. You have the like all of the problems that starts to arise, and like removing that need, right, versus everybody can be creative, can be value additive, is way more kind of just like removes the drag that right now people have.
Hey, if we get rid of managers, maybe we don't need politicians as well. What's Jeremy Hunt going to do? But maybe what's Trump going to do? Maybe we don't need presidents. We don't need. If we didn't need kings, why do we need leaders?
I think like it's better to think in terms of getting rid of the bad parts of those roles or like the unpleasant parts rather than getting rid of them entirely. So for a politician, for example, that might be actually writing the laws themselves. Right now, politicians rely very heavily on civil servants to write laws, and if the civil servants aren't feeling cooperative, maybe you get a law that's maliciously undermining your intention. If you're a politician they don't like, if you could outsource that to an AI, right, it's much easier to align an AI with what people want than it is to align a person.
Couldn't you flip all of this on its head and say, in a world of AI in which so many tasks are being automated, what we actually want is not just quote unquote a manager, but a coach, someone to bring us to the best of our abilities. I mean, we've got the Olympian of AI, Illias, right here with us, and I'm sure that there was people throughout his career who inspired him to greatness. I mean, for all of us, Emad as well, certainly as an entrepreneur, there must have been people who shaped you to become who you became.
I've been lucky. I've had some fantastic managers, and I wouldn't want to have ever got rid of them. But it would have been better if they could have spent all of their time on the things that they did really well, and less time on filling out expense reports and doing perf reviews.
Let's go to the future of money. Emad.
Yeah. So look, I think that by next year, AI agents will be better than anyone at KVM jobs, keyboard, video, mouse. And you'll be able to just spin them up by having Zoom calls with them, and you won't know it's a human on the other side. It's a new type of Turing test. But in that type of environment, what happens is that you'll have AI-run companies a few years after, as Illia said, that will outcompete human-based companies because they don't have the emotions and they are more persuasive and they're more efficient for any type of knowledge work, which is massive for us. So what I see happening is things like, for example, the Fed's central bank policy. You cut rates, people get hired, and then that reduces unemployment rates. They'll hire GPUs instead. So the private sector becomes more and more AI-based, and everyone ends up working for the public sector.
Whoa. What industries do you think are first most prone to hyper-automation?
No more call center workers are needed as of today, because AI can strictly do that better. So that's a big chunk of the Filipino economy gone. If you look at other things, it's a lot of these jobs whereby AI, we've all been thinking about super genius AI polymaths. I want someone to do my taxes properly. I want someone to do my expenses properly. The jobs of cooks, as it were, that follow recipes. It's what Greg Brockman says is a menagerie of different models that are specialists, which are a lot more efficient. And the cost of these is almost nothing. Like we have a new healthcare model, iMedical, that performs at ChatGPT level for health on 8 billion parameters. So it's basically free because it runs on 15-year-old computers. Whereas before, that cost so much to build a specialist and then get him into a GP surgery or a specialist. So a lot of this knowledge work is going to collapse, starting with things like customer service and then moving up the tree.
How quickly do you think this would happen? Even if the technology is capable of doing this, how quickly would that transition happen? And what would happen to the people?
So we can take an example of OpenAI 2.5 years ago from ChatGPT and now $10 billion in revenue, looking towards 126 billion in a few years. If you have technology that can go on anyone's existing laptops, that can do knowledge work and then can be coordinated, then I think that this is a 5-year thing whereby strictly, why would you hire any expert that's a human over an AI? Because they're more convincing, they're more capable, they never sleep and they don't make mistakes for operational work. Then that's the role of the human in creativity. But then we look at 10 years and you've finally built enough robots, that's physical labor. And we have to think, what do you do if the AI systems and swarms are strictly better than you? And that's a very complicated one. Again, the only thing I could think of is we all end up working for the public sector, jobs guarantees and things like that.
Well, we wouldn't be working because there would be nothing for us to do.
Well, that's why you have a jobs guarantee.
Mike, help us out here.
With what?
Yeah, with taking us to the next phase. I mean, first, do you agree with Emad?
No.
Why not?
I actually think it'll be the opposite. I think what we're going to see is a massive amount of self-employment, and very far from all the jobs disappear and we all end up working for the government. It's going to be the opposite. It's going to be if you can automate a lot of management tasks in a company, then it makes it much easier to start something and run it. Where a lot of companies just really struggle to go from one or two people with a great idea up to success because just the management of the thing is just so challenging. If that becomes easier, then I think you'll see an explosion of people, going trying it for themselves, right? And of course, many of them will fail, as is always the case.
Can you put some, sort of paint a picture of what that looks like in 10 years with a hypothetical person, company, how the economy may change?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think a lot more self-employment. I mean, I have my own company, and I've done things already like automate the reconciliation.
Yeah, but you're a
of my
developer,
accounts,
so you've
right?
got there's a sample bias there. You're sort of the exception that proves the rule. So I'll give you one example.
But this stuff will become very easy for everyone, right? You'll be able to sign up with some service that's like, I will run the company for you, right? And we'll handle all kind of tasks and allow you to focus exclusively on whatever it is you really want to do, which doesn't have to be software. That could be all kinds of things.
It feels like you've got
Maybe
Illia, yeah, go for it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. My question always to this argument is, what if you take it to the next level? Imagine there's a company that's started by one person whose job is to start companies that solve problems. And those companies are fully autonomous, run by AI. There's no people in them, right? There's just one person that starts companies, right? And one of those companies probably will end up being company that starts companies, right? Because that's a proven model. And so I'm just curious, why is there need for, this one person companies when you actually, provably automated everything, right? To Emad's point, when you just hire more GPUs and turn that into business, and obviously AI can do all the market research needed to understand where is the opportunity, and it can execute quicker than having a person in the loop.
Well, I would say
over 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. We're only looking 10 years ahead. That's not that far, actually. Right? We're not going to turn into some communist state or all the jobs disappear in 10 years. Certainly not. And there's going to be a ton of jobs and a ton of companies doing things that only people want to do. Right? My wife is a masseuse. I don't want to get a massage from a robot, even if it's technically possible. That job will continue to be done by people for a long time, and she runs her own company doing that. Right? And there's going to be lots of things like that where people have a huge advantage. Maybe it won't be accounting, right? I don't know. But it's certainly going to be some things where they continue to focus on the things that people do better, which there will be, I'm sure.
Illia, do you see that? Do you buy that? It looks like you are still skeptical.
So I think there's a whole host of activities, let's just not call them jobs, activities where we care about the process, not the outcome. I think those will continue staying with people. So sports is an example, right? Yes, people check the score, but that's not the reason why sports exist, right? Sports exist because we want to watch people perform at the top of their game. Video gaming, etc. We don't really care about the outcome, we care about the process. Massage is probably on the edge of this. There's a whole service industry where we indeed care about people delivering the service, then even if it's really good robot, although obviously when some threshold is reached, right, and this robots can look like us and talk like us, I would argue that kind of will also dissipate, right? If the robot is perfect kind of mechanism and has skin, artificial skin, etc., we probably will be fine with.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least majority of people will be fine, right? There will be. Well, again, we have AI that is accelerating research. We have now physics and chemistry Nobel Prizes won by effectively AI. You can imagine this continue accelerating. So to me, it's always interesting because we don't know the timeline. So is this 10 years? Is this 2 years? So is this 20, 30 years? It's unclear. But if we project the kind of like I usually look at the AI cycle, there's about 5 years from major step changes. Like if you look from effectively 2008, then 2012, then 2017, 2022, right? Like there's major step change kind of in technology of AI. And between those step changes, everybody kind of stuck with like projecting whatever the previous step change introduced, and like kind of, and then the next step change come in, and everybody's like, "Holy shit, we didn't realize this was possible," right? So like we'll see what the next step change brings, right? We're effectively a couple years away from it.
Okay, let me press you on this. What do you think the next the step change is going to be?
I mean, I do think like we are not far away from like if I would bet on something, it would be effectively AI research agent. It's something that can feed itself and improve itself, and like effectively doesn't need user input anymore.
What does that mean?
Artifacts of what is so whatever right now, you have thousands of people in OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. Sitting there and developing the next model. Like replace that with just one AI model that come up with new hypotheses, generates them, tests them, effectively replace just all of the intelligence of these people with one model that continues evolving itself.
So are you talking about in the sciences? I mean, if so, that's great for the sciences. How would you extend that to commercial opportunities, to creating new businesses?
Well, I mean, the model that will effectively it's improving itself, and in meantime you can use that to develop any business, right? It's the same: generate a hypothesis, test it with the real market, and create a business out of it.
Yeah, look, I think that we've been building polymaths, and now we strip them back, and then that particular type of AI agent can create the tax accountant. That doesn't need out-of-sample things. It doesn't need to know Reddit or when man walked on the moon. It needs to know how to do your taxes. So you'll end up with this entire swarm of graduates, effectively, that are specialized, that can be tapped to call on for your business. And in the next few years, the interface will be exactly the same as any remote worker. You don't have to learn a new way of interacting with this technology, except for they won't go to sleep, they won't make the same mistakes, they'll learn, and then they'll adapt to your personal context. And so again, for any KVM type job, that's a massive disruption, because you won't fire people immediately, but any economic downturn, you replace them with AIs. Certain industries that are more competitive and outsourced, you will have that happen quicker. For the physical stuff, the process-based stuff, yeah, that will take longer, but this is a big change to the economy because we've never been able to scale talent in that manner. I want a marketing team, I want an accounting team, I want a HR team, etc.
So why in this world would you not have like one prompt window, which is your AI accountant, and every other accountancy firm is gone because you've got this one that has all the scale effects and is the smartest and the best? Wouldn't you have this sort of, Ilias is nodding, like wouldn't you have this hyper sort of power law to the top AI model in X industry and all other companies go out? So in fact, right now you've got Bain, BCG, McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC. You'll just have AI business consultancy and all the other ones are gone.
Well, you need humans to blame in the interim. And so the accountancies will get rid of all the junior people. And then you can blame the senior people, and that's your guarantee. Just like every medical decision will be checked by an AI, it'll be malpractice not to in a few years. And then eventually the AI will make the decisions for medicine, for politics, and others. And again, this is a transition, and we're talking about 10 years from now. And again, I view that as an inevitability.
Mike, you've got the mic going up and down. So
No, it's fine.
any contribution? It looked like you were going to lean in. How does a Web3 developer think about this idea of the end of all industries save for one, the apex of the?
Well, I mean, you do see this consolidation in lots of industries already anyway, even before AI. Just because if you can interact with a company over the internet, the market can sustain 4 or 5 competitors before people just you can't differentiate between the different brands and what they offer. So they can go that way for a bunch more companies, but I don't think there's going to be massive difference. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing.
What about the value of decentralization? For all the things that Richard said, it seems like this is actually a trend that goes in the opposite direction.
Well, it could do it. You know, I think you're going to see people. It's not so much that you won't get consolidation, but that it will churn faster, so people will be able to compete with the bigger players more easily because they can scale up quicker. If you look at what happened with the cloud, right, it used to be that if you wanted to run a software company and have 1 billion users, there were only a handful of companies in the world that could do that, and the ones that survived. Why did Facebook become successful? Because they were the only company that managed to scale up and not collapse, right? But nowadays, the industry has learned how to do that easily, and now anyone can create a company that scales like that. So, and that has sort of had a decentralizing effect. We think of it as centralizing, but in a way it's had this decentralizing effect. I think you'll find the same with AI.
And what's the role
I'll
of...
maybe take a different angle here. I think if centralized AI reaches some threshold, we actually don't have space for Web3 or other products for that matter. Like, I actually think if centralized AI reaches some threshold, as I said, like, let's say there's AI research kind of agent that is able to spin off, best accounting agent, best like effectively specialized agents for every function, and everything converges just to use that, we will kind of not have Web3, and we will not have a lot of other things. Now, there's a huge detractor on that, and this is kind of sovereignty of countries, because now every country's GDP effectively just relies on that one company, and this is already starting to happen, right? Where, if you are guys in UK right now, if OpenAI tomorrow decides to turn off access for UK for whatever reason, right now there's a massive GDP like risk that depends on one company. So this is where decentralization comes in. Is it's less about the model and the specific agent that is specialist in specific area, and it's more about the control of the whole kind of stack underneath needs to be decentralized. Otherwise, there's no sovereignty for anyone, right? It's all kind of becomes dependent on a single player. And I think like we need a community and user-owned decentralized models and agents that maybe become specialists or even, full AGI, ASI, but it's effectively on like accessible to everyone on equal footing versus right now, if you're inside OpenAI, you have like raw model, unaligned model, no restrictions model. And if you're outside, you kind of consume whatever is given to you.
I would say we're already there, though. I mean, you can download models and run them on your own hardware today, and they're actually quite good. I used one last week, and it worked fine. And I didn't use OpenAI or Anthropic or any of the big players to do that. So I think what Emad has been saying as well is you can train much smaller models that are specialized now, and that will have a decentralizing effect. I mean, it has to, right?
So that's why I'm talking about specific threshold. There is a specific threshold at which effectively this model is so good that it can go and like hack into every other laboratory model and effectively delete them. Right. Okay. And it's game theoretic. It's game theoretic for them to do that, because if they don't do it and another lab crosses that threshold, they will do it to them.
And what's the role of the blockchain in this?
I think, Illia wrote the paper Attention is All You Need, and crypto economics has very interesting attention mechanisms. Like, Bitcoin created a credibly neutral value settlement layer, and you can utilize blockchain to offer different incentives to users, to offer different incentives for creating RL at length. And as we transition from a pre-information age, an information age, to an intelligence age economy, huge amounts of capital wants to have exposure to intelligence-type things. This is why NVIDIA keeps going up. This is why AIX crypto keeps going up. And if we can figure out the right incentive mechanisms, we can build the tools for properly decentralized, distributed, credibly neutral AI that everyone can access and drag the attention towards that, versus everyone using ChatGPT and then there's an outage today and our collective IQ drops a little bit.
If I began with the pedestrian and the outrageous, let me end, because we're running out of time, with, again, a lightning questions to all three of you on what do you expect to go away in 10 years? Mike, you start.
Spam.
Spam. Yeah, good luck with that. Illia.
I mean, as I said, I think applications.
Applications. Okay. And just put some flesh on that. Why do apps go away?
You just have a device that fully AI run. You will not, like, if it needs some piece of software, it will just generate it on the fly. If it needs to connect to someone, third party, it will connect to them.
Why is that a benefit than how the world works today?
It's a benefit because, I mean, right now you're effectively like, hey, I want to book a hotel. Okay, am I going to Booking? Am I going to Kayak? Hopefully they integrated all the hotels, etc. Right? Like, I want to buy something. I'm going to Amazon. Like, I'm in Portugal, right? Am I going to Spanish Amazon or Temu or whatever? Like, so all of this right now, it's effectively on a user to figure out all of those decisions. Like, your AI will just be figuring out. I mean, this is just going to be the way we interact with computing. Computing will be fully AI driven. It will be predictive. It will actually try to predict what you want. Like, it's not that like you will chat every time you want to ask something, but there's going to be no need for, some third party to ship you a piece of code that is static. Like, it will dynamically generate on the fly specific experiences that you want to interact with.
Okay. Emad, what's going to go away?
Hopefully Moloch, this demon of bureaucratic disorder, as we have AI systems that are efficient, that can watch over us, and allow our kids to have proper education that's agentic, help us with our healthcare, not being sick care, etc., and make it so that the governments aren't quite so dumb.
So government's less dumb, healthcare, Moloch, and bureaucracy, and education. It sounds like we set the stage literally for Jeremy Hunt.
There we go.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.